So in keeping with the week's theme of what Santa brought me this year, we are reviewing Generation 1 Perceptor, though this one is actually the commemorative edition release, which means technically it's in the universe camp of figures since that's the logo on the box, but it's a little bit weird, so it's a reissue. So we're calling it G1 Perceptor. Let's just not confuse or muddle the situation in any way. I wanted to stay off of Transformers for a little bit longer since I just did Ruination, but I don't know, this one's just been kind of sitting here, and I think it kind of begs to be talked about, because I think this is an underappreciated figure. So as you can see, he is one of those G1 toys that does not turn into a vehicle of any kind. He is a microscope, since this is originally from the Microman line that was all about transforming things that were actual size. And this is about the right size for one of your standard kid-friendly microscope toys. I had one as a kid, and actually bright red, kind of like this. So this is kind of a little bit familiar for me, even though I haven't owned a Perceptor before. So as you can see, yes, it is cast in red plastic with some bright orange there in the center, as well as these kind of aqua blue colors. It's always an interesting color combination on Perceptor, isn't it? Like the red and blue work well enough. It's almost Optimus Prime color, but the red's a little darker, and the blue just has this nice little turquoise touch to it that really kind of gives him his own persona. I kind of like that, though it does not create the most solid of looking microscopes. As you can see, yeah, as microscopes go, it's pretty blocky, and there are some obvious things like, treads molded to the inside of the legs, so not the most obvious of microscope choices, but hey, it works. And by that, I actually do mean it works. It's kind of surprising that way. This tube actually does have lenses inside. If you were here and you could actually look through with your naked eye, you could actually make out, and you can kind of see it through there. You can see that plastic tray on the underside. Now, to the designer's credit, there is a lot going on here. The mirror can be angled to 45 degrees. That is correct, because that's how light shines through and up into the lens. Now, of course, it's just foil, so it's not a proper mirror, so it doesn't reflect as good as it could. The tray, likewise, is clear plastic, so light can shine through it quite easily. And yes, this actually does magnify. That actually does work. And it gets up to, I believe, a 14 times magnification. Let's see if I can't. Yeah, you can see like a little bit of a change, but through the camera, it's not going to really show you what I want it to show. Now, I will say, it is not the best of microscope experiences, since they're not real lenses inside. It's plastic in the shape, and it kind of works, but not as well as glass, and it's not precise in any way, shape, or form. So it is what it is. It's more of a touch than I would have expected. At least it works to a point. Now, if you have the newest version, the one that's currently at Target with Blaster, there will be slides that come with it, so you can actually use the microscope a little bit more correctly, but from what I've heard, not the best of experiences, so whatever. So yeah, we have this microscope with some light molding all around it, heavy reliance on sticker detailing, since it is G1, of course. You have the rub sign right there, which will tell you whether or not this microscope is an evil microscope or not, as well as the big reflective and metallic Autobot symbol there right on the top. And that's pretty much all I got for this mode. So we can go ahead and go into robot mode, or we can rotate these around, flip these parts out like so, and bring them all the way down. It could have brought them the other way, but whatever. And we actually get a rudimentary tank mode out of it, which is why, of course, he has tank treads molded in. He does have a roll to him here. There are wheels on the underside, and there's another third wheel down here, so it kind of has to be set pretty low for all three to hit the ground. Even now it doesn't work. So, as it stands, most times you're going to see it displayed like this, as kind of like anti-aircraft, kind of thing. But you'll find that these pieces are also completely removable, which lets you rotate it all the way down so it fits flush with the legs, and now all the wheels are touching, and now it rolls quite well, actually. And that is what our proper tank mode should look like. This is, again, chalked up to the fact that it's from Microman, so it has a little bit of integration with some action figures that, of course, this doesn't come with. But hey, this is kind of cool. It comes with this third mode going on, and okay, so it's kind of just like a rolling platform with a big cannon on the front, but it kind of works in a weird way. And I do think this is kind of necessary, especially since they just reissued it again. Selling kids on, oh, it's a toy microscope doesn't really sound all that appealing. But it's a microscope that can turn into a tank. So it's automatically just a little bit cooler than it was. So it's not too eventful. It's mostly the same details. Not really, you can't really make out a microscope anymore except for the dial here on top. But you can see the extra molding along the side now, the tank treads and such. And it does have a heavy machine look to it, in spite of its scientific nature. So let's go ahead and get all these pieces back on, and I'll show you a proper robot mode out of this. Come on, there we go. Alright, so from here, all that goes back in. The transformation on this guy is pretty simple. There's really not a whole lot of surprise to it. So we rotate all this around so that all these stickers point forward. That way we actually have some detail in robot mode. All this pulls out, rotate down, flip down the little shoulder pieces. The fists are in the old G1 style, little tabs on the inside of the arms that you have to push out. Go ahead and get all of this up so I can do that a little bit easier on this one, like so. All this will rotate and fit flush right there, and then there is this little gear in the back. When we push that down, head comes up all on its own, and that gives us our finished G1 Perceptor in robot mode. And as G1 goes, yes, he is very, very blocky, but he's also very heavy and a very solid toy as a result. Surprisingly so. I really didn't expect it out of the microscope toy, but hey, he actually is. So let's take a look. First off, you're going to notice that the head design, if I can actually get the light to cooperate, the head design is not anything like it is in the cartoon, especially because this one has a faceplate rather than the mouth that we know the character to have. Yeah, it's one of those things where they really wanted to play around with the designs a little bit more, wanted to actually give him a mouth, so it is what it is. It's not the toy being inaccurate, it's the animation being inaccurate. How nostalgia, how you confuse us. So yeah, a lot of the details are now pretty much the same as they were before. He doesn't hide anything at all in either mode. He's just so blocky that both modes tend to work really well and keep a really clean design. The only thing remaining is really that big lens and scope that actually becomes a fairly passable shoulder cannon. So, kinda works. But yeah, I do like the big solid proportions. I like the color placement. It's nice and evened out. Everything's balanced. There's no colors that are heavier than others. Get a little bit of black added in because the pelvis is now visible. And I do like how the orange from the microscope mode is now the inner details in the chest. Especially with all those mechanical details molded in. Now that creates a really cool effect. And hey, maybe he's a matrix bearer because his chest does open up and closes back up. Probably not, but hey, he can dream. One day he might get that promotion. Now, as you can see, for a G1 toy, it looks like he's actually doing a bit better than they usually do on articulation. Nothing in the head. Well, no surprise there. The arms do move out. They do have detents to stick there at the 90 degree, but you can kind of fake it. Nothing's really forcing it there other than some spring-loaded action. 90 degree elbows that are not detented. They are just very nicely frictioned. Now for the legs, we do have an outward motion so he can stand a little bit split-legged, a little bit more naturally. We do have thigh rotation. We also have rotation just below the knee. We have full 90-degree knee, which doesn't really help since his legs can't move forward. And the feet do tilt down because of the transformation if you find a pose that requires a little bit more of a stable stance. All in all, it's actually not a bad level of posability for a G1 toy. It's a lot more than they normally get, especially in the 85 line. Like, I think he was 85. Feels like 85. Whatever. 85, 86, in that realm is when Perceptor was around. But he stands out pretty well articulation-wise for that. Much of it allowed for the transformation. So, I like when they work out that way. Now, if you want a little bit of real playability, we do have an accessory count for him. For starters, he does have his typical guns. Here's his G1 rifle, which is not a bad design. A little bit plain. I like the clip on the front, as well as it has a scope of its own, because of course his gun is going to have a scope. Why wouldn't it? This is kind of why I think this is one of the reasons he gets depicted as a sniper so much in IDW. Of course, that's also might just be because he's a microscope, but hey, whatever. And then we have the missile launcher. Missile launchers are something of a hit and miss thing when it comes to G1 reissues, and Perceptor is, well, frankly, a miss. See, modern missiles are under a far stricter bit of toy law these days. They have to be 2 inches long, and they have to be round on the front. This is not compliant to either of them. Now, there's a few ways around this. G1 reissues have had springs weakened. They've been remolded to make these super long and stick out the back of the missile launcher, or they've just been retooled completely. For Perceptor, they took the cheapest way out possible, which is to just remove the spring and glue the trigger into place. Also, no friction. So the missiles are effective in no way whatsoever. They are useless in this version of the toy. Now, the G1, of course, does fire, and the Japanese reissue does fire as well. The current one also has no firing mechanic, but the missiles are actually able to friction in place and stay there. So at the very least, you get a gun that looks like it's loaded. So there is that, I guess. Ah, well, tis the fate of G1 toys to be neutered for reissue. So that is G1 Perceptor. It is a surprisingly solid toy with a surprising amount of articulation for a G1 figure. I wouldn't call him the most exciting G1 toy. I mean, he does turn into a microscope, but if you like the character in the show, I don't think the toy does him any injustice. It looks good, it's nice and solid, and hey, the microscope actually works a little bit, so maybe you can actually zoom in on something from time to time. Or, you know, turn him into a tank and have him bulldoze over Decepticons. You can have the microscope bulldoze over Decepticons too. It's your toy. It's your imagination.